Hello friends, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more English stories. Let's practice English together. Lena had always dreamed of speaking English fluently. She had studied English for a few years in her home country, but she felt like she could never quite speak the way she wanted to. Her grammar was good, but her speaking skills were not up to par. One day, Lena made a big decision. She would go to the UK to improve her English. She enrolled in a language school in London and was eager to start her new life. On the first day of class, Lena walked into the school feeling nervous. The classroom was filled with students from all over the world. There were people from Spain, Japan, Brazil, and even a few from Russia. But everyone had one thing in common: they were all learning English. Lena sat down at her desk and waited for her teacher. Her teacher, Mrs. Williams, was warm and friendly. She welcomed everyone to the class and asked each student to introduce themselves. Lena was excited but nervous as she introduced herself. "Hi, I'm Lena. I'm from Turkey. I want to improve my English because it's important for my career," she said, trying to speak as clearly as possible. Mrs. Williams smiled. "That's great, Lena. We're all here to help each other. English is not just about knowing grammar. It's about using it every day. If you want to learn English well, you need to practice as much as possible." Lena felt relieved. She liked Mrs. Williams' approach. It wasn't just about studying textbooks. It was about speaking and practicing real-life English. In the first few weeks, Lena found it difficult to speak English outside of the classroom. At school, she could manage, but in real life, when she had to order food at a restaurant or ask for directions, she was nervous. She often used Google Translate or asked people to speak slowly, but she realized that this was not helping her improve. One day, after class, she decided to go to a cafe to practice her English. She walked in, took a deep breath, and tried to order coffee. "Hi, I would like a coffee, please," she said. The barista smiled and replied, "Sure, what kind of coffee would you like?" Lena froze. She didn't know how to respond. She had learned the words for coffee and please, but she didn't know how to name the different types of coffee. She stammered, "I don't know ... maybe ... a cappuccino." The barista smiled kindly and said, "No problem, cappuccino it is." As she sat down with her coffee, Lena realized that the more she practiced, the easier it would become. It wasn't perfect, but she was starting to communicate in English, and that felt like a success. Lena knew she needed to improve her listening skills, so she started watching English TV shows and movies every evening. At first, it was hard to understand anything. The actors spoke so fast, and they used slang that she had never learned in class, but she didn't give up. She decided to watch her favorite TV show with subtitles at first, then gradually without them. It was challenging, but over time, she started to catch more words. One evening, while watching a movie, she understood a phrase that made her feel proud. "That's amazing," she said to herself. "I understood that sentence without subtitles." After that, Lena started listening to English podcasts during her daily commute. It wasn't easy at first, but the more she listened, the more words and expressions she recognized. Listening was becoming a vital part of her learning process. A few weeks later, Lena's teacher introduced a new method called shadowing. Mrs. Williams explained, "Shadowing is when you listen to native speakers and try to repeat what they say, copying the rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation." Lena was intrigued. "So, I should just repeat after them?" She asked. "Exactly. The more you practice mimicking their pronunciation, the more natural your speech will sound," Mrs. Williams said. Lena decided to try it. She found a video with clear English speakers, and every day she listened and repeated what they said. At first, it felt awkward, but soon her mouth started to get used to the sounds. She could hear herself improving, and she felt more confident when speaking with her classmates. One of the best parts of Lena's experience in London was meeting new people. She joined an English-speaking club where students from all over the world gathered to practice speaking. There were people from Italy, South Korea, and France, and each one had their own struggles with English. At first, Lena was shy about speaking, but as the weeks went by, she started to feel more comfortable. She began sharing her thoughts in English and listening to others. There was one student, Marco from Italy, who was always so encouraging. He would tell Lena, "You're doing great, keep going. English is hard for all of us, but we'll get better together." Lena began to understand that everyone was in the same boat. They were all learning, and mistakes were part of the journey. The more she practiced, the easier it became to express herself. One day, while having a conversation with Marco, Lena realized something important. She was starting to think in English. She didn't need to translate from Turkish to English anymore. She was able to understand the language naturally, without having to pause and think about the words. "Lena, you speak better than before," Marco said, smiling. Lena was surprised. "I think I'm thinking in English now. It feels so different." Mrs. Williams had once told the class, "To really master a language, you need to think in it. If you're always translating in your head, it will slow you down. Try to think in English, even when you're alone." Lena had finally reached that point. She was no longer translating in her mind, she was living in English. Of course, there were still moments when Lena felt frustrated. Some days, she felt like her progress was slow. There were words she couldn't pronounce and phrases she couldn't remember. But Lena didn't let these challenges stop her. She knew that learning a language was a marathon, not a sprint. One afternoon, she found herself at a bookstore. She was searching for a book to read in English, something a bit more advanced. She picked up a novel and started reading it slowly. It was challenging, but she was determined to keep going. "I can do this," she told herself. "I've come this far." Months later, Lena was sitting in a cafe, chatting with a group of friends in English. They were all talking about their favorite books and movies, and Lena was contributing to the conversation with ease. Her confidence had grown so much that she no longer hesitated to speak. She realized she had achieved her goal. She could speak English fluently. Looking back, Lena knew the journey hadn't been easy. There had been days when she felt like giving up, but she had persevered. She had practiced speaking, listening, and thinking in English every day, and now she could see the results. Lena was no longer just a student of English. She was a confident English speaker. She had made lifelong friends, learned about different cultures, and had become part of a community that communicated in English every day. As she looked out over the city of London, she felt a sense of pride. She had taken a big step, and now the world was full of opportunities for her. End. See you in the next video, friends. Take care and goodbye.